Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to stick to Hong Kong and we're going to return to a brewery that has now featured on the channel a good few times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the last couple of years, quite a few different styles, and if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they are just pretty solid all round. I've had some really nice lagers from them, quite a few different kinds of IPAs, and we have had one or two things at the darker end of the spectrum as well, and they've always been pretty good actually. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a style that I have had from this brewery before, albeit the sub-style I think is one that I've not really touched upon with this brewery yet, so that should be quite interesting. And the adjuncty side of this one I think is one that I probably will quite enjoy actually. So yeah, just very curious to see how this one turns out. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head a little bit to the north of me here in Kowloon, up to the new territories. We're going to go to Pho Tan to be precise, and that means that we're going to have a look at another beer from Carbon Brews. So this particular beer is called Wonderland. It comes in at 10.5% ABV, and this one is an Imperial pastry stout. So yeah, it's also barrel aged. It doesn't say at all what barrels they've used for this one, and I've found this before actually with Carbon Brews that they just say barrel aged. They don't tend to tell you what barrel they've actually done in it. But yeah, this I think could be very interesting. I've only ever had one or two mint chocolate Imperial pastry stouts before. One of them was from Hop Hooligans in Romania, and it was pretty damn good. So these beers, if they're done properly, they can be really quite good. And I've heard mixed things about this one, so I'm, as I say, not sure exactly what to expect of this one, but I certainly love mint chocolate, and that was the main reason that this one kind of caught my eye. But my first Imperial pastry stout from these guys, as a style, pastry stouts can be a little bit of a hit or a miss for me. I'm not a great fan of the kind of marzipan-y, overly sweet ones, or the kind of granola flavour that you can get in these beers, but some of them I found are very nice. So let's just crack on with this one then and see what this beer is going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Carbon Brews before, and we will no doubt add some more to that list at some point in the near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the Hong Kong playlist along with a number of other things. That's been added to very regularly, of course, since I am based out here now, but do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very, very interesting things in there these days. So yeah, let's go on to my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Carbon Brews once again then. So Carbon Brews, as I've told you before, was founded back in 2018, and it's located in Pho Tan in the New Territories in the northern part of the Hong Kong SAR. So the original brewery was located on the 1st and 10th floor of the Union Industrial Centre in Pho Tan, and this was previously the Hong Kong brewery of Kiuchi Brewery from Ibaraki in Japan, who of course brew the Hitachino Nest beer range. But they established this facility originally back in 2015 in an expansion attempt. But the original general manager of this brewery was Chris Wong, who is of course very well known in the Hong Kong beer scene. But he was an accountant who by trade, who was from America originally, and he co-founded HK Brewcraft and Heroes Beer Company while also working for Hong Kong's for the Hong Kong Hitachino Nest operations. But Carbon Brews basically took over this brewery in late 2018, and they were established as a completely new brand for one of the investors in this facility. But the name Carbon is derived from Pho Tan, because tan means carbon. This is a very industrial area of Hong Kong, and they quickly built a reputation for themselves as being a very experimental brewery. Apparently they had a club called Group 14, which sent out a new experimental beer and invited fans to the brewery every month. I've heard good things about what was going on with the Group 14 stuff. But these days they're sticking a little bit more to their core range. They've got a tap room in Central on Wyndham Street, if I remember correctly, on Hong Kong Island. This opened in 2022, and they've got another bar which opened a little bit earlier than that in Akasaka over in Tokyo in Japan. But in 2023, Carbon Brews took over the Double Haven Brewing Dragon Water facility, which is just down the road in the Wai Industrial Estate in Fotan as well. And the brewery there operates a 35 hectolitre brew kit. The current head brewer is Diaz Jumashev, who is from Kazakhstan, and he's joined in the brewing team by Justin Chan, Lydia Kuzmina, Harry Liu and Tommy Liu as well. But as of June 2024, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced about 135 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. And yeah, like I say, they've done a number of different styles. Probably my favourite beers from these guys would be the Crispy Boy, which is a Mexican lager, that's lovely. Also the Crazy Rich Lupulins, which was the first core range New England Hazy Double IPA in all Hong Kong. That's a great beer if you can get a fresh batch of it. And also there was one of the black IPAs which was great as well, but I forget the name of that one. But yeah, this is among the first of the big Imperial Stouts that I'm trying from these guys. But yeah, they do some very, very interesting things at the bigger end of the scale as well, but not quite as experimental as they used to be. I think that's definitely fair to say. But yeah, that is everything I can tell you about Carbon Brews for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on and have a little look at this beer itself. So before we open it up, I'll just give you a little closer look at the artwork there. There you can see the Carbon Brews branding at the top there, which I've always quite liked actually. But yeah, artwork on this one is quite interesting, just like a hillside with a river of chocolate or a lake of chocolate or something like that. So yeah, this I think was a Christmas beer once upon a time, but I'm honestly not sure exactly when this one was. Oh no, it says it was packaged on the 1st of October 2021. So we're drinking this beer at about 2.5 years old. So a little bit of age on this one. Like I said, it is barrel aged as well, so that's going to make it kind of more interesting. Of course, when you barrel age Imperial Stouts, you're going to get that really kind of silky dryness coming out of them. Plain black top on the bottle there. This is 650 millilitres. I actually can't remember where I got this one, come to think of it. So yeah, kind of interesting. But yeah, let's get this guy out into the glass and see how we go. A 10.5% barrel aged pastry stout. This one, it tells you the hops and malt bill on the side here. So in the malt bill on this one, you've got paleo, wheat, oats, carafa 2, carafa A3, cara Munich, chocolate, rye and cara red. Some very nice German malts in there, of course, from the Weiermann maltery in Bamberg, Franconia, Bavaria. And the hops in this one, you've got Warrior, which is quite well known bittering hop. That one, I forget the alpha acid of it though. You've got EKG, which is East Kent Goldings from England. HBC 472, which is an American experimental hop, John Haas I think, and it gives you this big woody coconutty sort of thing. Then Sabro, 14% alpha acid, American, and it gives you that, you know, tangerine orange and also a bit of coconut as well actually. Chico yeast in this one. Then there's chocolate, lactose and mint added into this brew. So yeah, this I think should be quite interesting. An interesting brew sheet. I would love to see the brew sheet of this one and see exactly what they're doing with it. But yeah, let's get it out into the glass and see how we go. At 10.5% Imperial Pastry Stout, my first Imperial Pastry Stout from Carbon Brews. A little bit of smoke on the opening then, and we'll get this guy out and into the glass. Let's see. That's interesting, yeah. So I think that's just about half of the bottle out and into the glass. I'm kind of glad I'm sharing this one. But yeah, you can smell, as soon as you open that up, you can smell the barrel and the and certainly some of the mint as well. So be prepared for that. But yeah, anyway, let's have a wee look at the appearance of this one. Not much in the way of head, actually. Just let you have a little look at that. You can see it's quite a soapy head that comes out of this one. But yeah, as you'd expect from an Imperial Stout, this one's got a lovely, very dark ebony rosewood colour to it. One or two big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones just heading up toward the surface there. But if we shine the light through this beer, there's not a lot of transparency to this one. You can see it has got a little bit of haze to it, and that's probably due to the presence of the wheat and the oats in this one. If you just use barley malt in the stout, sometimes they have a little bit of clarity. But yeah, definitely this one has a little bit of a kind of natural haziness to it. But yeah, this should be quite interesting. But in terms of appearance, as to what you'd expect from an Imperial Stout, nothing untoward with this one. Remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. One, the type of malts you use. That goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. Two, length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugar's caramelised, and thus you get a darker colour of beer. Any barrel aging you do or adjuncts you put into it will affect the colour as well. But when it comes to black beers like Imperial Stouts, it really is very, very difficult to get over that black malt character in this one. The carafas and the chocolate malt in this one are most likely to be the ones responsible for this very, very dark colour. But yeah, I don't think we really need to see anything more about the appearance of this one. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma then. So yeah, really curious about this. So sugar it up a wee bit and dive in. Oh, interesting. The mint in this one isn't all that prominent, actually, when you go into it more in depth. I wonder if that's due to the age, actually. Because yeah, it's actually got a good little bit more roasty toastiness and kind of bread crusty type character to it. So yeah, the way that all kind of pieces together, I think, is quite interesting. I think this is going to be one of these beers where it's quite a bit different in the aroma to how it actually turns out to be in the flavour. So yeah, we'll just need to play with this a little bit and see what it's all about. So for me, yeah, you can, with the Imperial Stout, I should say there's two things you can really do to play with, or a couple of things you can do to play with this style. Of course, you can barrel age them, and if you do that, you're going to sacrifice a little bit of the mouthfeel to get all these infused flavours. The other thing you can do to play with them is you can do a double mash, which is going to give you that big, thick, sticky sort of mouthfeel. And the other thing would be to do a longer wort boil, which is going to give you some leathery flavours and give you a lot of complexity. So yeah, those are the three ways really to play with Imperial Stouts, other than, you know, adding adjuncts into them. But yeah, when you age these beers, you let them sit in the bottle a wee bit, you start to get this real kind of silky dryness out of them, and you can smell that in this one. As I say, this beer's 2.5 years old. The effect will vary from beer to beer and stuff like this, but yeah, you can really smell that sort of silky, you know, sort of toasty, bread crusty, chocolate, cocoa nibby, silky character that you get when you age an Imperial Stout. That's quite apparent in this one. But let's just break the aroma down and actually describe it a wee bit more in depth. Now, for me, the backbone of this beer, you can smell a nice little bit of oakiness out of this one in the backbone, and I suspect it probably is bourbon barrel that's in here. It's a little bit hard to tell, but you know, there's something just telling me it is bourbon. It's definitely not cognac. It doesn't smell sweet enough to be rum. It could be something else. I've had an Amburana barrel aged stout from Carbon Brews before, so you know, could be that. But the barrel, I just want to say it's bourbon actually in this one. There's just something telling me the spirity character is bourbon. But yeah, you can certainly smell a little bit of that. Smooth American oak in this one. There's a little touch of vanilla in the background there as well, which is common with American oak. Remember, European oak is a good bit drier than than American oak normally. American oak is a bit smoother and you get a wee bit more pronounced vanilla from it, I would say. Different species of tree, which will explain that. But yeah, on top of that, yeah, you get a nice bourbon character out of this one, and the bourbon notes, I think, are very smooth and oily. I've always said American bourbon has more of a bite to it in comparison to the smoother Scotch whiskies. But yeah, above that bourbon layer, you can smell a bit of a roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust, but it's not too aggressive. And again, that's a characteristic that you'll find with those Weyermann Carafa malts. Those are trademarked, incidentally. It's only one maltery that really produces those. So yeah, the maltery, sorry, the bread crusty character on this one is quite toasty and well fired, a little bit dry, but then on top of that you have a really nice, there is a little bit of a kind of rye bready character to this one for sure. So yeah, nice little bit of, you've got the toasty well fired bread crust, a wee bit of rye bready character in there as well. There's almost a little bit like a kind of chocolate brownie character or chocolate sponge, which is interesting. But you have to get the minty character out of this one. You have to take the aroma in quite deeply. I have to say that. Yeah, you get this big, nice, deep. If you take a big, deep smell of this one, then you start to get the minty notes out of this one. It reminds me of After Eight chocolates a little bit. Love those things. Bit of nostalgia. My gran and grandpa always used to have those. But yeah, within that kind of chocolatey and bread, that chocolate spongy, chocolate brownie type layer, yeah, the mint feels as if it's kind of embedded within that. Quite a little bit of chocolatey character coming out of this one as well. And like I say, because the beer is a little bit older, it has that kind of dry cocoa nibby type character to it. But I would say, you know, a sort of 60-70% cocoa chocolate. Dark, but not too dark, I would say. And on top of that, there's definitely a wee bit of brown sugary character to this one. And you know, there is rye malt in this one, so yeah, that explains the kind of more grainy rye bready characters you do get out of this beer. But yeah, a bit of toasty brown sugar in there, a little bit of leathery brown sugary character as well. Would I go as far as saying, like, you know, treacle or molasses? I think that potentially is in there, but the overall aroma of the beer is just that little bit drier, I would say. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be quite interesting, this one. Yeah, I think we're going to get more complexity out of the flavour of this one than we are from the aroma, if you like. But yeah, I think we said everything we need to about the malty side of things. Let's focus on the hoppy and the fruity side of the beer. So yeah, obviously when you barrel age a beer, you're going to lose a good little bit of the kind of green component of the beer. It's going to kind of fall away, and this beer is 2.5 years old. You could age this longer if you really wanted to. I think it recommended 2026 or something like that. 5 years basically. They recommend you keep this one. But yeah, so that effect is going to become more pronounced. But on the hoppy side of things with this beer, you do get a little touch of earthiness. There's a little bit of herbal character. You do still have a little touch of floralness and a little bit of grassiness in there. Probably the Warrior is the one that's going to give you that. East Kent Golding is going to give you that more herbal kind of note, and the HBC 472 is going to give you that big woody. There is a, you know, that's going to push the woody characters out a little bit more. So yeah, green component is there in this one, but of course it's, if you sugar it up actually, you do get a little bit of this almost vegetally woody character out of it, so that's interesting too. But yeah, on the fruity side of things, I have to say this beer really isn't that fruity at all actually. You do have like a little hint of, there's a little tiny hint of like a sharper raisin or sharper plum or something like that, but yeah, you do get that oily plum, oily kind of raisiny note out of this beer. Maybe a little bit of black currant or something. But you have to take the aroma in really deeply and really kind of search for that. This, you know, it's not, and doesn't come across as being a naturally fruity beer, if that makes sense. And of course, the thing to remember, Sabro quite often gives you orangey flavours. but that depends. You know, hops can behave differently depending on what malt base you put them with. So in a white malt base, if we can call it that, you're going to get a lot of tangerine and things out of it. But Sabra, obviously, a lot of the hops are going to give you red fruits if you put them in a black malt base like an Imperial Stout. So yeah, interesting things going on with this one. As I always say, take a bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it. But I think it is about time that we have a taste of this one then and see what it's all about. So yeah, this is the Minter Wonderland, a 10.5%, I suspect, bourbon barrel aged Imperial Pastry Stout. My first Imperial Pastry Stout from Carbon Brews in Fulton in the New Territories. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Quite interesting, this one. I mean, it comes across as quite sort of smooth and silky rather than anything else. It really does lean more toward the kind of chocolatey side of things. The mint, I think, is a real subtlety in this one. Yeah, it really is quite interesting, this one. I would have expected maybe just a little bit more prominence from the mint, but maybe that'll build as we drink more of it. This one comes across really as a very smooth, silky, chocolatey bourbon barrel stout. It's definitely bourbon barrels, this one. No doubt in my mind now that I've tasted the thing. But yeah, quite an enjoyable beer, this one. It's not quite as, you know, funky and unusual as some of the other, as the last Imperial Stout I had from Carbon, which was the Amburana barrel aged one. But it's still pretty damn solid, actually. Yeah, not bad, not bad. Let's just go through it and see what else we can get from it. We'll break the beer down and describe it for you a bit more in depth, as we always do. Other thing you're going to notice about this one is virtually no carbonation. Yeah, it's good. So, yeah, I like this one actually. Just would have expected a wee touch more prominence from the mint. It is very, very subtle. So yeah, I'd be curious to know when they've actually added the mint into this one, if they've put that in with the barrel and let it age, or, you know, maybe that's the thing, you maybe should add the mint a little bit later on. Just incidentally as well, we've been eating some Carl Fazer mint chocolate, Finnish chocolate, normal Carl Fazer, the milk chocolate. I think that's the best one in the world. So after the video, we're going to need to try some of that with this beer. But yeah, let's just break it down and describe it more in depth, as I always say. Middle third of your palate then. Backbone of the beer then. Obviously, you've got this nice, the mint really does start to build on this the more you drink of it, incidentally. But yeah, the backbone of this beer, you've got that lovely kind of smooth, oaky sort of thing in there. The oak actually does have a wee bit of dryness to it as well. This beer does get drier and drier into the aftertaste, but yeah, you've got that nice, smooth, oaky dryness in there. But as you move further forward on that middle third of your palate, you do get a little bit of the vanilla coming out of this one, and then you can feel the spirit layer there. Definitely bourbon, and it's quite a sweet bourbon at that, actually. So yeah, for me, the I would say the next layer up, you've got a nice bread crusty character in there, and yeah, the bread crusty character has a real kind of roasty toastiness in this one. It's not too aggressive, as I say. It's kind of It's like got that smoothness that you expect of carafa, and just that little bit of dryness there. So yeah, roasty, toasty, well-fired bread crust. Above that, you can definitely get this kind of dense, slightly sweet but more dry rye bready character. And above that, there maybe is a little touch of wholemeal brown bread. But then that's probably going to come from the Cara Munich. But then yeah, above that, you start to get the kind of it's more of like a chocolate muffin or chocolate sponge type layer. It's not quite oily and thick enough to be like chocolate brownie. You've got that layer above there, and the minty characteristics in this beer are kind of embedded in that particular layer. But yeah, above that, you start to get the cocoa nibs and the chocolate out of this one. So yeah, the sort of chocolatey layer is quite interesting, because at the back of that middle third of your palate, it's got more, yeah, it does have more of a, yeah, it does have more of a kind of dry cocoa nibby sort of thing. And as you move further forward from that into the middle of that middle third of your palate, it's got a wee bit more of a, I would say, yeah, it's got a little bit more of that kind of like 60-70% cocoa chocolate, and then as you move further forward, it kind of dials back to about 50% cocoa chocolate. Remember, sweeter flavours will come out further forward, more dry and bitter flavours will come out further back on your palate. That's the gradient. And then the chocolatey character feels really kind of silky and dry. That's one of the products of barrel aging, of course, and the beers just being that little bit older. But then above that, you start to get the brown sugary notes out of the beer. So the first layer of brown sugar is a nice kind of leathery, dry sort of thing. Not had too long a wort boil though, this beer, I would think. Then yeah, above that, above the kind of leathery brown sugar, in the dead centre of your palate, you're getting they're getting a little bit of like treacle molasses out of this one, maybe a little bit of straight up sweet caramel as well. But the treacle molassesy characters in this beer are most definitely because of the they're most definitely because of the alcohol in this one, actually. But yeah, I think the kind of more, you do have a little bit of a sweet caramel and a bit of toasty thing. So yeah, leathery brown sugars, toasty brown sugars, sweet caramel, and then a bit of treacle molasses right in the middle of your palate. But yeah, we've covered the middle third of the tongue in this one, and that, yeah, the middle third of the palate there, and that's the most complex part of this beer. So yeah, let's go on and do the back third of your palate. As I've often said, the back third of your palate is going to give you similar flavours to the middle third of your palate, just at different intensities. So yeah, border region between middle and back third of your palate. You get a little bit of that bready build up in there, so you can feel the rye bread in the base, the brown bread, the wholemeal brown bread in the middle, then the wee bit of the more kind of chocolate spongy layer on top of that. But the base of that back third of your palate, you can feel the kind of slightly drier side of the oakiness, and there you've got the bourbon layer in there again, which again feels a little bit drier, maybe a wee bit more toasty. You've got the kind of black toasty rye bready bread crust in there from the carafa, the rye bread layer, which was a little bit lighter and more airy, a wee bit taller, drier of course. The brown bready layer above that, which again is a bit taller, lighter and more airy and a wee bit drier. Then the sort of chocolate spongy layer, and just creeping over the top of that, you've got that kind of cocoa nibby type effect that I was talking about earlier. So you can feel that drier cocoa nibby character. Then above all of that, you have the kind of yeasty side of this beer. So let's focus on that. The yeasty side of the beer for me is yeah, the yeasty side of this beer, it's a little bit almost Christmas puddingy like in this dead centre you get that big oily sort of Christmas puddingy sort of thing. That's at the centre. Around the edge of that, sweeter, more oily rye bread, and then the very edge is just like a toasty kind of thing. You know, like that baked charred edge of a cake on the bacon tray. It's kind of like that. So all of that sits on top of the back third of the palate. So definitely your flavour on the back third, the flavour in the back third of your palate, you can feel is definitely taller. And as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it just kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, the way all of that just pieces together in this beer, I think, is really quite nice. So yeah, that covers the malty and yeasty side of the beer and the barrel as well. Let's go on to the hoppy side of things and the fruity side just to round off. So as I said, the hoppy character in this beer will have dropped out because it's barrel aged and it's also aged in the bottle a little bit. So the back corners of the palate, you've got a nice little bit of earthiness in this one. As you move further forward, it is quite herbal. A lot of that, of course, will be due to the East Kent Goldings and the HBC 42. You do get a little bit of woodiness in there. As you reach the kind of front corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of floral aromaticity, and then round the front curve of the tongue, it is just that little bit lighter and more grassy, of course. But yeah, the green coat in this one is very smooth for the reasons that I've just mentioned. Let's look at the front third of your palate then and the fruity side of things just to round off the flavour section of the video. So border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of the kind of rye bready character in the base, the brown bread on top, and the sort of chocolate spongy, chocolate muffiny type thing on top. And the base of the front third of your palate, really smooth oaky characters in there, the sweeter side of the bourbon, toasty bread crust, and you've got all those bready layers in there that we talked about earlier, and you can feel the smoother side of the chocolate, the more silky side of the chocolate. It's more like a kind of 30-40% milk chocolate. You've got that layer then sitting on top of that there as well. So yeah, that's quite interesting with this beer as well. Then above that you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. One thing I will say is you can feel, now that we've had a good few sips of this beer, you can feel the mintiness just pushing its way out there into the flavour, into the aftertaste. So yeah, it does take a wee bit of time for the mint to come out, and a lot of the smoothness you're getting and the silkiness out of this beer will be down to the oats as well. We haven't really mentioned that elephant in the room with this beer yet. So yeah, it's a very smooth pastry Imperial Stout, this one, and I love milk stouts and the smoother Imperial Stout, so that's probably why I'm enjoying this one as much as I am, not to mention the fact that I love mint chocolate. But anyway, yeah, let's investigate, let's have a look and describe the fruity side of this thing just to round off. So yeah, if you hold the beer on your palate a little bit, you are going to get your kind of typical fruity notes out of this one. At the back of that front third of your palate, you do get a nice little bit of big oily plum in there. There's a teeny hint of raisin, but I wouldn't say it's that sharp. So you've got raisins, a little bit of raisin in there, big oily plum, maybe a wee bit of like date as well. And as you move further forward, you're going to get a nice oily fig. And as you push into the kind of front half of the front third of your tongue, you're going to get some like black currant and sort of blackberry type things out of the fruity side of the beer. So these things are all quite typical of it, but of course the focus on this one is not the fruit, it is more about the malty base and the adjuncts and things like that. But yeah, I think the rye character out of this one, I think, becomes more and more prominent into the aftertaste too. And the carafa, the influence of the carafa in this beer and the dryness that it has is quite interesting. But yeah, I will say this is one of the pastry stouts that I do quite like actually. I think this one has a nice balance to it. So maybe I like pastry stouts that have a wee bit more wheat and oats in them and just aren't quite as, granola in a sense, but the rye would contradict that argument actually. So yeah, solid beer this one from Carbon Brews. Not quite as funky and unusual, I guess, as the last Imperial Stout we tried, but still it's kind of up my street actually. Not mind-blowing, but very solid. So yeah, let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. For me, mouthfeel of this beer, yeah, bottom end of full bodied. Carbonation in this one's virtually non-existent. It's got a wee bit of oily slickness to it and a kind of nice little bit of smoothness. But yeah, all in all, it's quite yeah, it could do with just a little hint of carbonation, and maybe perhaps just being a little bit thicker almost. And I think, you know, that's one of the things here. It strikes me as being one of these barrel-aged beers, and the recipe's been designed without the barrel in mind. You know, it needs just a little bit more thickness, I think, to survive the barrel aging. It could do with just a little bit of a thicker mouthfeel in my mind. That's just my opinion. But yeah, IBU wise, I think this one's pretty low in its IBU. It's got quite a little bit of dryness to it, like I said, so maybe it's about 30 or 40 IBUs, but I'll say that and I'll be wrong. Does it say the IBU? Actually says 65 on this one. This is why you always take my IBU counts with a pinch of salt. 65 apparently. I wouldn't have guessed that with this one. I would have thought it was lower than that, and just everything else could be dryness. But yeah, the malt base, as we say, you've got the smoothness of the barrel, the sweetness of the spirit, quite a dry and smooth malt base in the middle, but more silky and oily sweetnesses on top of that. The mint comes out into the aftertaste too. The hoppy character's kind of dropped out of this one for the most part, in honesty, but yeah, you've got that little bit of dryness and bitterness there from it as well. Then just a wee bit of fruitiness. The fruitiness is a bit sharper in the beginning, but it mellows out and gives you a wee bit more sweetness into the aftertaste as well. But yeah, all in all, really interesting beer, this one, and definitely cool to try another Imperial Stout from Carbon. And I think we've got another one to look at in a few videos time as well. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. Solid Imperial Pastry Stout, and another one that's another one of the hits rather than the misses, for me at least. But yeah, I think the last one I had from Carbon was a little bit more unusual and exciting than this was. But yeah, let's leave it there. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Carbon Brews as well. We will return to these guys at some point soon, but in the meantime, this was the Minter Wonderland, a 10.5% bourbon barrel-aged Imperial Pastry Stout with mint and chocolate from Carbon Brews in Photon here in Hong Kong. Until the next time, check out my social media, check out theirs, and I'll see you guys in the next review. Ciao just now.